YouTube, this is Scott Smith and I'm here for another video, and a bit different this week. We're going to be looking at Edinburgh Arts, and we've got Stephen from Edinburgh Arts here, who is my publisher for my limited edition prints, which you might have seen in galleries around the UK and Ireland. So we're going to look into a little bit of the process of the framing of it, the production of the prints, and a little bit about the company as well, and a little bit about artists that might want to put your prints out into limited or open edition print. Edinburgh Arts do both, although for myself it's just limited editions through Edinburgh Arts and their G-Clay prints. So if anyone's interested in what's involved with that, what's important things to think about, this is where it should be. So first of all, give us an idea of the company. I mean, you've been around 40 years now, so just introduce us to what you're about.
My dad started the business in 1980. He was a joiner who was finding work difficult at the time and decided to sidestep into picture framing. So from 1980 we moved from various shops to another, getting larger as we expanded, and then around the mid-1990s decided to go into a little bit of publishing, mainly due to the fact that there were a lot of images that we'd seen in paint, or had been painted as originals, but we'd never seen in print, and we thought, well, why can't we do this ourselves if nobody else is going to do it?
Yeah. And is this the point at putting out prints? Was this the point that the G-Clay technology was coming in?
It was just coming out at that time.
Yeah.
At that particular time, we
late 90s, was it? Or,
our first print we ever published was 1995.
Right.
It was about the same time that these large format inkjet printers started to come out, but they were very expensive to run at the time, and the cost per print was so extreme compared to lithographic printing that it was just we couldn't justify the cost in it at the time.
I had my first print I ever put out, 2001 or 2000, it was a George Square print. It was 895 copies was in the edition.
Yeah.
Only 100 were ever produced. I mean, that was at a time in my career where my appeal and my reputation did not support 895 copies. Now, I was way behind the ears, like all artists are, getting into reproduction and really not having much of a clue. But what I did want to do is I wanted to reach a bigger audience with it. But what I feel in hindsight now is it was just a little bit too early. I always think now that, especially with limited edition, that an establishment of the originals needs to come in first. Do you have any artists in the books who might differ from that sort of concept?
No, I mean, a lot of the artists that we've taken on had never been published before, and I think certainly the exposure of working with us helped the original side, and helping them sell more originals because their work's in print and it's being broadcast to a wider audience. That then in turn returns the demand to the prints.
Yeah. As
the value of the originals go up, some people can't afford to buy originals, some people can, and it's about finding or being able to offer something that pleases both parties.
Yeah. I often refer to it as a sort of symbiotic relationship where one helps the other, and it works both ways. It's kind of somebody might be drawn to the work, the originals, not be able to afford it, and then they've got the option in limited edition, which comes to the point where with limited edition tends to be priced at a certain point that the originals need to be worth a decent amount of money before you get into it, because people would just buy the original. So it either becomes a supply and demand issue where you have a very popular image that is no longer available as an original, and you can provide that in a larger quantity, but it's no telling that the next print or the next image is going to do as well. And it's almost like you need to establish yourself properly in a wide range of images first, before you get that sort of, before you think about a publisher putting out a range.
You will find that if you publish 10 images, you'll probably find that 2 of them are particularly popular, and the other 8 aren't too bad, but don't sell to the same degree.
Yeah, well, the thing about it, I mean, I came into being published as by Edinburgh Arts, having put a few limited editions out myself, and but there are, because of the Giclée technology and how that has taken over from Leith, though, it allows. I mean, I've seen some fairly cheap Giclée prints sold as desktop ones, where you can do like sort of smaller scale Giclée prints from your home. You might spend £5,000 or something, get one of these things and put them out. But as we'll see later on from some of the facilities here, the economies of scale and it allows a certain quality to come out from the amount of eyes and hands on from origination right through to the framing and everything under the one roof. And
it's very much people focused.
Yeah,
it's a very labour intensive process. The whole process. You need eyes.
Yeah, I think it's certainly it keeps artists that have got a company like yourselves like doing the work behind the prints. It gives them a bit of an advantage over your self-published artists. And certainly from a distribution level, Giclée is the way that Giclée works. In case anyone doesn't know, is that you pretty much print on order.
Yes.
But the problem then comes with the logistics of that, because at first it was like we put out a print, might only sell 10 copies, but it's fine. You start recouping your costs very early. But I found that that's slightly problematic, especially from a customer's point of view. It tends to be that the value added with limited edition comes from the limited supply of them.
Yes.
So you're not really going to see a collectible item until the edition runs out, and you kind of need the distribution to run the edition out. So I mean, what we've done as company and artists has come to the conclusion that 195 copies was not only going to be low enough for to add value to the print, but it will also allow prints to sell out fairly quickly. But some sell out quicker than others, and I wonder what opinion you have about this. I have been looking into the Pareto principle, which is that 80% of your output. 20% of your output is responsible for 80% of the spoils of that output. Is that something that you would
pretty much on the nail, and has been for the last 20 years? It was a principle that my dad mentioned to me, not under the term, under the name actually, but that principle of 80% of your income or your business coming from 20% of your product has been something that's been around and acknowledged for years.
Yeah, it's a studied phenomenon by an Italian guy called Pareto, but it seems to apply to things like cities, tallest trees and forests and things like this, and it's the way I see it is that as soon as something gets a small advantage to sell a few more prints, then it becomes a self-perpetuating kind of effect, where before you know it you've got a seller print. And what I keep on getting asked even to this day, and there's a video out on YouTube showing the painting being produced, it's the 3 bridges. If you're interested, if you're interested, it's sold out, and it's sold out in 3 months?
Less than that, it's 2 months.
Was it 2 months?
I think we brought it out at the very end of October, and it was sold out by Christmas. It could have been early November and sold out at the beginning of the following year, but it was gone within 2 months.
I mean, I
wasn't advertised, marketed, anything like that. But it also incurred, or it happened at the about a month or 2 after the Queensferry crossing opened. I remember obviously going out and we looked at the site, sent your drone up, and you got some fantastic footage that day.
Yeah, no, it was that. I mean, it was I think we both knew it was a good image to put out in print.
Yeah.
I also did another one of the bridges which hasn't sold out, and that's been maybe just over a year.
Still ticks over.
It probably will sell out eventually, but you're looking at a rate of interest in one image that's an order of magnitude more than anything else, and it's this weird principle that I think, and I've been thinking about this a video to people that are thinking about print in a certain way, and I think it's a justification to put your work out as print as an artist, because you're not taking advantage of a principle like this Pareto principle, because 1% of what you put out as paintings will account for 1% of your income. That's provided you're selling all your paintings, which as an artist, the demand on your paintings should be such that the supply meets it, and always is that, and it's the increased price that changes it rather than anything else. And some artists may well put the price up on what they think is a really appealing painting. So they're like, oh, this painting's going to sell really well, so I'll double the price. I don't do that. And generally I would say to all artists not to,
I would agree
because
with that,
just people don't take your prices seriously. And it's good to have people sort of fighting over the one painting. Then
it stimulates the demand in your work.
Yeah, it means that people really get involved in trying to get the one that they like before someone else, and it helps that supply and demand relationship. So what you're not doing at any stage is taking advantage of this principle, which almost every business can agree that an element of this exists. So I thought that was really, really interesting. Fascinating thing to think about. So look it up, Pareto principle. So Stephen, I was going to ask you about you're doing limited editions for me. Fantastic quality, and customers really like them. I only ever get good feedback from these limited edition prints. You also do open edition, I believe, in a slightly different paper, but the process is the same. So the quality is there. It's not limited in numbers, it's not signed, but you have the two running. I also have the two options going, and I feel that sometimes people need explanation as to what's the value in that and what's the value in the next thing. How have you got on with working both in open, unlimited editions and limited editions as well?
It works in both cases. With the limited editions, they're printed on a much higher quality stock of paper, 100% cotton, much heavier stock of paper, and as you mentioned, they're also signed, numbered and titled by the artist as well. So the artist has got involved in that process of creating that print for the customer, and there's costs involved in getting that to the artist and back, and so they have to be covered and things. So the extra cost printing, the fact there's a limited number of them, effectively puts the value up, or the cost price up, which in turn then puts the selling price in a gallery up as well. With the open edition side of things, we're taking an image and we're printing it on a cheaper stock of paper. It's not 100% cotton paper, it's a fairly standard basic paper. Still matte art paper, and it's 240 gram. It's decent enough, but it's not the same quality of print that you're going to get. The same quality of printing, but it's not the same quality of print you're going to get at the end of it all. But the majority of people are happy with having the image, regardless of whether it's open or limited edition.
Well, I mean, we mentioned the sort of print on demand benefits of Giclée, but also the quality of Giclée as well. And I think what you used to do with the open editions is there would be in litho, and there would be, litho prints were so cheap per unit. Environmentally, the stock, the unsaleable stock then becomes an environmental problem. How does Giclée change that?
Well, you're printing at what you need, effectively. I mean, they first published in 1995, and that was lithographic printing through our printers in Glasgow. Up until 2008, that's generally the only type of printing that we undertook ourselves. We did outsource a little bit of limited edition Giclée printing to an Edinburgh printer as well, but in 2008 we made the decision that it was time to move. Giclée printing became more affordable, and the inks became more affordable, and printing open edition Giclées became a possibility. But prior to that it wasn't, because it was possible, but you'd pay a substantially higher price for an open edition Giclée print in the year 2000 than you would have done in the year 2010. Subsequently further on, as a comparison, it's cheaper now to print open edition Giclées than it was 10 years ago. And until those costs come down, then the end customer, are they really going to understand, the difference between one and another, and that you're up against this very cheap product? I mean,
the cost effectiveness of Leith was huge, but the
cost
downsides now seem to outweigh.
There was a cost effectiveness in doing lithographic printing only if you sold them.
Yeah.
Our issue was that with Giclée printing we can print off one copy, and we can show it to any number of customers, and they can then make a decision and tell us whether they would buy it or whether they wouldn't. With lithographic printing, you capture your image, or you get your image, you hand it to the printer, he'll give you a proof copy to say yes, go ahead with it, and then you commit to how many copies you want printed, whether it be 1,000 copies. We tended to print 2,000 copies at a time, sometimes 10,000 copies or more.
Well, this demand idea.
You didn't know about the demand until you printed them though.
Yeah.
So you go ahead and print 2,000 copies of something, and then go out and try and sell them, and nobody wants to buy them, and you're left with 2,000 copies of something. So the environmental impact is that you've wasted a lot of paper and all the transportation costs in between as well. Because with Giclée printing, we're buying a roll of paper and we're printing a print that's then going to get sent out. So
yeah, well, the effect that I see coming from the artist side of things, before I got into any open edition at all, I associated open edition with slightly not such good artwork, and that's sometimes due to because a demand is required.
Yeah.
A high demand is a requirement of this, which your method of producing in Giclée, that doesn't come into it so much. So, and sometimes the people making decisions about what should and shouldn't go into print, sometimes it's about the marketing and the hype rather than the and fad trends seem to come into it. And I guess I'm fortunate enough now that there's a certain appeal in what I do that reaches a larger amount of people, and I tend to think that I'm good with that. But sometimes the idea that your work is like beside some of these other sort of not such good images as people might see, I don't think it should be a decision for an artist that no, I'm too good to be shown next to this or that, because I always believe, and I've got this real belief that I repeat to a lot of customers that are looking at my open editions, that art is for everybody, and everyone should have that a proper sort of socialist idea of how artwork should get to people. And it's the idea that everybody has something to bring to the plate in terms of what they're interested in, what they want to see. And open edition Giclée and other sort of lower run stuff is giving people the options of maybe some more challenging artwork that they might not have had in the past, which I think is great for the awareness of artwork. I mean, you have people buying open edition prints that are readily available that wouldn't ever go into a gallery, and people like us need to give them good options, good options of what to buy, and people seem to be sort of getting involved in that, and some of the feedback that I get from the prints seems to me to be, if not as important, but possibly more important, certainly more frequent than the good feedback I get from originals. And it's not to say that people aren't appreciating the originals, but what it does say is that people appreciate how the artwork, regardless of what they spent on it, and everyone's spend is relative to their income, and it doesn't affect their tastes or their passion for it.
No, I mean, art's incredible. You know yourself, it's such a subjective subject. Just because you like a painting doesn't mean I'm going to like the same painting, and that goes to everybody. But also art should be affordable to everybody, which is you've kind of mentioned that already. I think that's a really important principle, because art enriches people's lives. And just because somebody can't afford to spend £1,000 on an original shouldn't mean they shouldn't have artwork on their walls. Therefore, we come in with prints. They might not be able to spend £200 on a limited edition print. You can spend £10 on an open edition print. Now, that person, just because of their means to pay these higher fees isn't there, doesn't mean that their wall should be bereft of art. They should be able to enjoy that and be surrounded by that. And what you do tend to find as well, which I know from speaking to artists over the years, is that people will buy prints, and they will then, if they continue to like that artist's work, will look to aspire to own an original piece. Or they'll step up from an open edition print and think, I'm going to go for that limited edition print. You know, maybe 10 times the price of a comparable open edition print. But that's a big step up for that person to do that. And maybe they left money, whatever happens, but they decide, I've really loved that artist's work, I've loved the work for 10 years, I'd love to own an original.
It's that aspirational idea of, you know, one day, I don't know how many times people have said that, one day I'm going to afford an original painting. And for artists out there, it's like in some ways they would love for them to be able to afford it, and yet the regulation of the market is such that you end up with no control over it almost. And that's where reproduction and prints come in. I say to people, anyone that doesn't think like that is just elitist snobbery.
Yeah.
But
I agree with you.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there's a number of galleries that have that kind of thought process in their heads, which feeds into the artists themselves, and artists get put off for having their work published because a gallery tells them that it's not a good thing to have your art published.
Yeah, and often the gallery is just thinking about their own.
That's exactly what they're doing.
Their own position.
Yes.
Not the customer's position.
No.
Not the man in the street's position
not
who
the artist's
wants
position
access to it if they can, and not the artist's position. But I've always found that for every, I don't know, it's a guess, but for every 10 people that are introduced to your work and love the fact that they've come in contact with the prints, you have one that has some sort of an opinion like that puts them off a little bit. But I think, you know, you can't please everybody all the time.
No.
It's really something that I feel quite strongly about. I mean, getting that feedback from publisher, who I believe a lot of publishers, when artists are getting involved with publishers, that kind of business can end up stifling a little bit. But with the right company, and I believe that yours is, the ethics involved in producing prints for artists comes into and that connection with the artist. I think you benefit from being that family business, which you started out with. So the family business has now moved from one part of Leith to the other, and near Edinburgh. You've only moved 100 yards up the road.
Literally about 100 yards from our old premises,
And that's where we are today. So we're going to take a bit of a tour around. How's it been moving?
The move is horrendous, but we're delighted to do it. We did it because the facility that we're in now is 100 times better than we were in before.
Reaping the rewards.
Without a doubt, and just the general, I'd say, staff morale seems to have lifted everything about it.
How many staff are?
In total we employ 29 staff. Within the workshop there are 12 framers within the workshop. We have an office space that holds about 6 staff, and then we have the gallery spaces both here and our city centre gallery as well, which take on another 9 or 10 staff as well in total. So
great, so we've got some of those images from the studio now. And we're just going to take you through the progress of a print. So, I mean, this is print publishers and framing. How many frames come through this place per week?
Roughly 1,000 to 1,500 frames a week.
This time of year, pushing the top end of that?
It tends to be top end of that, yeah.
This is mid-November if you're watching this.
Yes, we're starting to ramp up for Christmas, so the workshop's getting pretty busy.
Yeah, it's pretty busy. So we're going to take you... So G-clay prints come off the printer, and colours checked. Obviously that gets sent on to me, and then that goes through to the workshop where
it goes in the process of framing. So it'll initially measure up. That's effectively what you have to measure up in order to get your sizes. So measure up, mounts get cut, frame gets cut, frame gets pinned together and assembled. While all this is taking place, the glass is getting cut, the back's getting cut. And then
the glass is getting cut now. I do believe that you've got a machine to wash the cup.
We have a glass washer, which is unusual in our trade, but it's an enormous time saving for us. I mean, cleaning a piece of glass is the longest process in making up a picture.
Obviously, the top surface, it's the inside surface that no one's going to get to, because
Yeah,
it's all sealed up when you get it.
Cleaning a bit of glass by hand will take you anywhere between, say, 3 and 6 minutes, going from a smaller piece up to a large piece of glass.
Depending on your levels of OCD.
Aye, depending on where your OCD is and how satisfied you are in leaving the odd smear here or there.
But the thing is, it needs to be spotless if you can't touch it, that's the thing.
Exactly. So the glass washer we have not only cleans the glass perfectly, completely smear free, it also removes the risk of cutting yourself as well. Cleaning a piece of glass is the most dangerous part of finishing off a picture as well.
Glass washer, then onto, what about the mount board? We get, because you got two computerised
We've got two computerised mount cutters that are accurate to 0.1 of a millimetre when they're cutting, so they're bang on, perfect when they're cutting mounts. All the mount board we use, or the majority of the mount board we use, and certainly all the mount board we use in new products, is white core conservation boards of varying thicknesses. We use a slightly thicker board for the top mount, and then 2 inner boards.
Is that double thick on the top?
It's double thick on the top.
Yeah. I've always liked the way that you do those mounts for them. You've just got that sort of accent colour sandwiched in between two.
Got that little slither of, it's a kind of purpley kind of magenta colour that we use in the centre, which is actually a colour that you use quite regularly in your work.
It seems to go with everything. It means that anyone buying one print and then another print and it's framed here, and again,
from presentation throughout. That's what we try and do. And we do have people that will collect your work, and they'll maybe own 3 or 4 or 5 of your own prints, and they have that consistency within their house.
So, from the mount cutter, putting everything together, so someone else responsible for assembling all the frame glass.
Once the mount's cut and the mount has been put together effectively and the print is mounted within the mount, once the frame's cut and that has been pinned together, and once the glass in the back is cut, that all goes to what we call a finishing point or an assembly point, and at that point all the components are brought together to create your picture. And we'll obviously show you further down the line as to how that's done.
And of course with the acid-free heavyweight paper under the acid-free board, and
with an
mounted
acid-free
onto the
backing board behind that.
Is it hinged onto the back? How is that?
The back mount, the backing board of the mount is hinged at the top, and then the print is using, we tend to use acid-free linen tape, to adhere the print onto the mount board.
Excellent. Well, I hope you enjoy having a look round the workshop here. That's great. If anyone's interested in any of the prints coming out from Edinburgh Arts in Edinburgh, obviously Leith, if you're interested. There's also a flagship store you've got in Edinburgh.
Nicholson Street.
Yeah, I'm often asked for people coming from far-flung places who often like to visit Edinburgh, which is chock full of tourists, and good for the tourists. It's a picturesque city. If you're there and looking for any of my work, Edinburgh Arts do have a flagship store in Nicholson Street. Anything else is on edinburgharts.com, and you can also see my prints on scottneysmith.com/shop, I think, or just go onto the homepage and hit the menu button on shop. Okay, thanks for tuning in. The next, I'm going to hope to do some more videos a bit like this, maybe interview style. I've got some great ideas to put into video, I just need the time, so stick with me and we'll get some more stuff out for YouTube. See you in the next video, thank you.